All right, here we go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sophisticated Marketer's Guide to Thought Leadership, the webinar. My name is Jason Miller. I'm the Senior Content Marketing Manager here at LinkedIn Marketing Solutions, and I'm very excited to be with you today, so thanks so much. The hashtag, I believe, is Succeed in 2015, so please join along there, and we're just going to get started. So I might be a tad bit under the weather. I have a newborn at home, and she's like 7 weeks old, and I'm kind of running myself on the ground lately, but I'm really excited. I put a lot of work into this, and I'm just thrilled to be able to share this stuff with you. So thanks so much for joining us, and let's dive right in. So, Mr. Jimi Hendrix. I'm going to start off with Mr. Jimi Hendrix, a little story here about Jimi. This is Jimi Hendrix at Woodstock, the legendary performance, right? But what people don't realize about this legendary performance is that Jimi Hendrix's contract stipulated that he closed any show he played at this time. He was on the up and up. He was becoming a superstar, right? And what this meant for Woodstock was not a very organized event, right? So there were a ton of delays, and everybody was running late. It was just kind of a mess. So what this meant was that since Jimi had to play last as the headliner, if you will, with all the delays and everything, he ended up going on at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, at 9 a.m. That's not very rock and roll. And the crowds had dwindled, and many were heading home. They're estimating over 2/3 of the crowd had left, right? But what happened that day, these people missed, was they missed Jimi turning into this complete innovator as he did one of the most groundbreaking renditions of the Star Spangled Banner ever recorded, right? This is an epic moment for Jimi. And why I'm telling you this here is because I think, Jimi Hendrix is the epitome of a thought leader. And I think there's a lot we can learn from him in the world of business and marketing and content and social, right? Because this guy was the original. And somebody says, thanks to the addition of my family. Thank you very much. So Jimi, to this day, Mr. Jimi Hendrix, is still considered to be one of the greatest guitar players in the world. It's more than 40 years after his premature death. And in plenty of, you could say that plenty of, oh, hold on. I have a little technical difficulty with my slide. Next page. You could say that there are other guitarists who have surpassed Hendrix in his sheer, technical dexterity, if you will. But at the end of the day, nobody can touch what he's done for this, what he's done for music. His attitude towards the instrument, and as the source of the genius rather than his technical skills, if you will. So Jimi Hendrix is a true innovator, right? Which is how I think of thought leadership as well. And Jimi was this one who fused together ideas to come up with something totally novel, something people have never seen before. Jimi Hendrix fused blues with soul, funk, hard rock, and psychedelic music into a way that people had never seen or heard before. So I think, this is a great, I like to set this up because as a content marketer, as a demand gen marketer, as any type of modern marketer, it's our job to become this, to bring an element of thought leadership into our strategy moving forward. It's the only way to succeed, right? And again, I love this quote here, just showing the impact of Jimi Hendrix 40 years later, from John Mayer, who is a thought leader in his own right, but he famously said, who am I as a guitarist? Who I am as a guitarist is defined by my failure to become Jimi Hendrix. John Mayer could be one of the greatest guitar players on the planet, and he owes it a lot of his ideas and the way he plays all the way back to Mr. Jimi Hendrix. So again, Jimi Hendrix is a thought leader. I want to put that in your mind. I want you to remember that. I want everybody to think of Jimi Hendrix being Jimi Hendrix. When I was a kid and I saved up my allowance and I bought Are You Experienced, one of the greatest rock albums of all time. I still remember that. I listen to that to this day. It sounds just as good. Just as your thought leadership should be as you add it to your content. So Jimi Hendrix, thought leader. The guitar was his platform. The songs were his content. Right? And you can't do this without content. You can't have thought leadership without content. And not to mention, you can't do it alone, right? Don't confuse thought leadership with a thought leader, because those are two very different things. We can't all be Jay Bears and Ann Hanleys and Joe Pleasies of the world in content marketing, but what we can do is we can collectively band together our vast ideas and the way we think about things And that's thought leadership as a company, as a brand, right? Not as an individual. I mean, both are important, but let's be realistic. Thought leadership is much more easy to attain than being an individual thought leader. So with that being said, Jimi Hendrix, again, he didn't do this all by himself. He had the experience backing him up. He had his band backing him up. But even more, he took it even further by collaborating with others, very much like content marketers do, collaborating with influencers in the space, bringing in their collective genius to do something bigger. Jimi Hendrix famously played in the band of Gypsies, which was a superstar group, an all-star group. Some of the most amazing players, innovative players in the world got together. So Jimi Hendrix is a thought leader. Again, the guitar was his platform, the content was his fuel, the songs were his content. It all comes together, and it sets us up as we move forward. In 2015, if you don't identify what your brand stands for, if you can't differentiate your brand from the others and set yourself apart and be this leader in your industry, you're going to lose opportunities. And thought leadership is the way to do that. And again, people tend to overcomplicate this stuff. I don't want you to think that you can't do this, but I want you to think that that all this is attainable. So what is thought leadership? Can everyone see my slide? I want to make sure my slides are working here. So what is thought leadership? I'm not a huge fan of putting enormous definitions, a bunch of text on slides. I'm more of a visual guy. But this, as hopefully some of you know, I used to work at Marketo. So I ran global content and social at Marketo for a couple of years. And, Marketo they built that company. That company was built off of the blog, off of thought leadership on the blog. John Miller, one of the co-founders, no relation, they drove thought leadership through that blog. They set themselves out. They made a very quick impact. They disrupted their industry very quickly based on John's thoughts around how to better align sales and marketing, how marketing automation can transform an industry, right, and propel your business and drive more high quality leads. I mean, they were changing the game, and the blog was where they led this conversation. So this is John's definition of thought leadership. So in a nutshell, both thought leadership and content marketing can very effectively build your awareness and brand, but true thought leadership is much rarer. Thought leadership consists of ideas that require attention, that offer guidance or clarity, and that can lead people in unexpected, sometimes contrarian directions. Think of Seth Godin, for example. Thought leadership needs to be educational and ideally provocative, right? Content marketing can be simply fun or entertaining, but the idea here is to find some kind of a mishmash of those two and how they can work to play off one another. And then Jeff here, who's a principal analyst at Forrester Research, puts it, buyers don't buy your product or service, they buy into your perspective and approach to solving their problems. And again, it goes down to in 2015, moving forward, you have to differentiate yourself, and thought leadership is the way we're going to do that. So I've kind of boiled this down. I don't like to complicate things, and this is based on my experience over the past few years. And again, what I've boiled it down to is there's three types of thought leadership, right? Again, don't overcomplicate this stuff. So there's industry thought leadership, product thought leadership, and then organizational thought leadership. And this may sound like a lot. This may sound a little overwhelming, but you don't have to do all three at the same time. You don't have to do all three at all. But what you do have to find one that you think you can excel in, one that you think you can make an impact in and focus there. If you can do all three, that's great. There are some companies that are doing great at all three, but again, that's a pretty big goal to set. So I thought I'd share a couple of examples with you on who I think is doing really well in all three of these categories. So the first one, Semantics. Now, I love Semantics. These guys, they're in the security software business, and they do a really fantastic job with industry thought leadership because here's a campaign that they ran, or they're running currently, actually on LinkedIn. A lot of my examples are on LinkedIn, just because that's kind of where I spend my time mostly. But anyway, but you can see here a great example of industry thought leadership. They're using their showcase page or their company page on LinkedIn to share this content. But it's all about, they have this campaign to joining the fight against malware. That's industry thought leadership. They're not necessarily talking about their product. They're taking a taking a unique angle, and they're going after a very specific thought leadership play in their industry, right? And what's going to come along with that is when people think of security, they're going to think of Semantic based on how well they're doing in thought leadership, how much they're helping, how much they are taking, how much they become the authority based on the content they create and share with their audience and build this thing up. This is powerful stuff. And then if you look here, there's a really great, and these are the comments they're getting, right? They're engaging with, through this conversation through thought leadership. And Stephen Rawson here, who doesn't know that I'm using his example here, but it's on the showcase page, or it's on the company page. They're talking about the FBI's new malware investigator, and this guy chimes in and says, definitely not planning on installing software from the FBI on my computer. I don't think anything good could possibly come from that. But the conversation is there, it's starting, and we're not talking about Semantics product per se, we're talking about the bigger industry movement and their thought leadership position there, and they're using content very effectively to position themselves as the leader and the authority. Now, not to mention, I can't mention Symantec and not talk about my favorite video of all time that they did. This is Dokken versus Chicken, which is I don't really know if this is a thought leadership play, but I think it's really cool because I love the band Dokken as I love 80s hair metal, and they took a very unique approach to content marketers pay attention here. 80s heavy metal plus humor in the world of B2B marketing, I think always knocks it out of the park. So anyway, if you haven't seen that video, check it out. Here's another super awesome example of industry thought leadership, SEO Moz. Rand Fishkin, I guess Moz.com now I should say, sorry, I should fix that. But Rand Fishkin and his team do such a fantastic job with this. And just a couple of examples here. You can see, this is from their LinkedIn company page. And the reason I love this is because they're talking about industry trends, right? They're talking about SEO trends, and their product is very closely related to that, but they're not selling you anything. They're taking this leadership play. When I think of SEO and the experts in the world around SEO, I think of Rand Fishkin and his team at Moz.com. So naturally, with this position, when I think about I need to buy a platform to measure and optimize my SEO and my content presence, who's going to be top of mind? This is all about top of mind: content marketing, thought leadership, social, SEO, PR, all this stuff kind of boiling together into this integrated marketing strategy to stay top of mind. That's the name of the game, so that when they are ready to pull the trigger and buy your product, who are they thinking of, right? SEO or Moz.com and Rand Fishkin. Take a look at their page. Take a look. They have a thing called Whiteboard Fridays, where they just discuss industry trends and give away tips. I mean, these guys do such a fantastic job of this. I watch these Whiteboard Fridays every single week, and I share them. And that's the real power of thought leadership, specifically industry thought leadership. So again, I think they're doing an amazing job at this. So the second type of thought leadership that I boiled down to is product thought leadership. And again, I know I'm a little biased towards Marketo, forgive me, but I worked there for 2 years. I love that company. I think they're doing some really cool stuff. And I think they excel, I mean, they do all three of these pretty good, but I think where they really excel is product thought leadership. And now, we're not talking about product as you, like, specifically talking about your product all day long, because we know that's not the way to move forward here. So, but the idea behind product thought leadership is once you define a new, let's face it, best way for a company in a certain industry to go about business, you want to give them the means to get from point A to point B. Ideally, your products or services are the vehicle for taking them down this better path, right? So to help your audience understand how this vision can become reality through your product, you're starting to share best practices, strategic roadmaps, practical how-tos, and other information that shows your product's potential for transformation. This is really powerful, and this is Marketo does a great job with this because they're very transparent with their metrics. They're very transparent with everything around their platform, and it works wonders for them. They have nothing to hide because their product, they believe in their product, and they have great success stories behind their product. They know that it works. It's cutting edge stuff here. And again, they share great content. They write great content that's not selling their product. It takes a very unique product thought leadership angle here, and they do a fantastic job of it. Again, take a look at their company page and look at. They have a really nice mix of product thought leadership and the other two types of thought leadership, as well as some kind of fun, engaging content. Right, finding this how we kind of tie it all together. That's the important thing here. So so again. Great example of product thought leadership here with Marketo. I think they do a great job. Another one, and you know, I'm a if you know me, if you follow me at all, you know I shoot concert photography, so I'm a huge camera advocate, and I do this, you know, quite frequently. And I'll tell you what, when I first started off, there wasn't a thought leader in the space. I didn't know anything about this camera. I had an Nikon, and I had no idea how to use this thing. So what do? I go to the web and I start searching on, you know, tutorials, and who comes up? Time and time again, Adorama. And this is a store. This is a camera store that started in 1979 in New York City. And I love their slogan here, more than a camera store. And they really live this, man. And I'll tell you what, I've learned so much from their blogs. This is Adorama TV here on night photography. But they own this. Their product is cameras, right? But it's not just one brand of camera. It's all cameras accessories. But they take this thought leadership and they teach you how your camera, how your camera can get you from point A to point B. Point A being a crappy photographer to point B, mastering low light photography. That's very powerful, and they teach you. And then every time I love these guys so much, and I have so much loyalty to them, and so much thanks for them in taking this authoritative position and teaching me so much. That where do I go every time I need some camera gear? I go to Adorama. Who do I talk about every time? I mean, it's a win-win situation. So I'm sharing their content because they are helping me, and to me they are the authority in the world of photography. And I think they do a fantastic job at this. And it's the investment in content, but it's not just the investment in content. It's also the investment in taking that up a notch and becoming that authority and becoming that go-to and showing people how to transform themselves with their products. So Adorama, I love those guys. And this is interesting, man. So this gets a little controversial here. But cultural thought leadership. This is the third type. So we have industry, we have product, and now we have cultural thought leadership. And again, this is an easy one, man. This is one where I think anyone can start like right away and make an impact very quickly. So, you know, the first thing that pops in my mind is Jesse Noyes over at Compost. And I love this because they talk about how they put their culture, they wear their culture on their sleeve, if you will. Their product, Compost, if you don't know Compost, what Compost does is they manage your workflow for content teams, right? And they measure impact from different angles. But what's really unique is they not only do they sell this product about regarding content marketing, but they also walk the walk. So and they talk about this culture of content, how they embody this culture of content within LinkedIn, and they put it out there because these guys are the experts, right? I love this. There's a thing on on SlideShare called #CultureCode, where it's an entire channel dedicated to companies who want to share their culture. It's quite a remarkable movement. They started this, I think, a year or so ago, and I think if I remember this correctly, it blossomed when Netflix actually released the SlideShare deck, and it wasn't like a big fancy design deck. It was literally the internal culture documents on how what the culture's like to work at Netflix, how they embody this really great place to work and innovation and thought leadership within the workspace. But so take a look at that. And it's got I think it's got millions and millions of views, but it's really incredible stuff. So Culture Code is a great movement and a really great way to open up the door and kind of jumpstart your cultural thought leadership. But again, it's all about how your company is transforming, how your company is innovating ideas, and it can become a thought leadership in a cultural space, and that ties all the stuff together beautifully. And then this next example comes from Buffer. Oh, sorry, somebody told me to slow down because I get really excited when I talk about this stuff. So I'll try to take it down a notch. This is a really interesting example of cultural thought leadership that I found. So this showed up on LinkedIn. Buffer actually introduced open salaries. So they're transparent formula and individual salaries. This is kind of crazy stuff. But and I dug a little bit deeper into this, and I found out that the employees were okay with this, right? So they actually they released to the world how they pay their employees, and then they actually release the actual salaries themselves with individual names. Very Very ambitious, if you will. But again, the employees were good with it. But again, what this did for them as around cultural thought leadership, it really pushes. It kind of took them to the next level because people were talking about them, and they were talking about this very very ambitious way of running a business, and it worked. I mean, thought leaders all across the space were talking about this. The PR, the news wires were picking it up. I mean, this is a really, really big story, and all they did was open up their culture to the rest of the world and showed how a very forward-thinking, innovative business runs inside, and it's paying off dividends, I think, for their brand and their awareness. And I tell you what, I was on Buffer that day, you know, tracking my account and upgrading my account, and it worked. It worked wonders. So I love that example. So again, if you've seen me speak before, I talk about this a lot. The blog, right? The blog is the mothership. People always ask, well, where does the thought leadership live at? Where do you keep it all at? Well, there's a couple different things. You can have a resource section, which is, you know, a pretty big undertaking and very time-consuming, or you can have the blog, which anybody can create a blog. It's usually free, but this is the mothership, man. This is, I say, the dude abides. This is, the blog is the social media rug that ties the room together, right? Everything that you're going to put out there, your voice, your story, your thought leadership, has to have a central place to live. It's indexed by Google, right? It's indexed by the search engines, but not only that, don't confuse the blog with the resource section, because the resource section is very static. It's searchable. It's like a library, right? And there's a time and a place for that. But the blog is a running story. It's got timestamps. It's got dates. It's a running dialogue of your story told by your employees and your brand and your culture, right? So this is the mothership, man. This is where your thought leadership lives. Now, it's not dedicated solely to thought leadership, but it certainly is the place where you're going to drive traffic to. And then if you drive that thought leadership, if you drive that traffic back through these thought leadership ideas, and you're optimized to convert, that's where we all win, right? And that's all what we all aim to do with this, hopefully. So again, now how do we take those ideas, the thought leadership ideas, and apply them to LinkedIn? Well, this is very specific to LinkedIn, but again, I think this is important as we move towards this idea of a fully integrated marketing strategy. And thought leadership is certainly a big play in that. You have to lay the foundation, and these are the opportunities. I'm just going to go through the opportunities for thought leadership from brands and companies, and even individuals to an extent on LinkedIn. So we have here, you know, SlideShare. I'll go into these a little bit deeper in a second, but SlideShare, groups, sponsored updates, showcase pages, company pages, and then the publishing platform, which recently opened up to all members. So again, this is where you're laying your foundation not only for content marketing success, but to add on to that a layer of thought leadership to really drive it home. So again, company showcase page. This is your foundation on LinkedIn, right? For content marketing, for thought leadership, for brand awareness, lead gen, you name it. If you don't have a company page, you're not going to. The company. Let me just rephrase that. The company page is your ability to share your updates and build this following on LinkedIn in the world's, you know, professional network, right? So we always talk about this, the differences between LinkedIn and other social networks. And I think, you know, people spend time, if you will, on the other social networks, but they invest time when they're on LinkedIn, right? And your company page is your hub for thought leadership. It's your hub for content marketing, but it's also your hub for thought leadership. It's where you can build that audience and then post these thought leadership, these unique angles of conversation and get them out there, these unique viewpoints. It's very powerful. And again, that's the company page. And then if you want to split that even further and kind of segment that out, we have showcase pages available. A great example of this is you know, we here at LinkedIn. So there's the LinkedIn company page, and then LinkedIn Marketing Solutions, the team that I work on, has the actual showcase page, because our messaging is different, right? So I market to marketers, I talk to marketers, I talk to marketers about thought leadership, to where LinkedIn has a much broader audience. So to really reach the right audience and build up these different audiences, this is how you do it. So again, company page, showcase page, free to use, easy to set up, and again, if you don't have one of these set up and optimized, you're simply missing opportunities. Sponsored updates for thought leadership. This is interesting, man. Now, why I like this so much, sponsored updates / native advertising, right? 2015 is going to be a very big year. I talk about personal branding a lot. That's super important. I mean, thought leadership is certainly a buzzworthy term to throw in there as well. But native advertising, man, this is cool stuff, right? Paying to promote your own good content. Let me just say that again. Paying to promote your own good content. Why would you not want to do that? People say that inbound marketing alone is enough, and I think that's a little bit short-sighted, right? Because inbound marketing alone, it's kind of like hanging out with the same group of high school kids your entire life, right? And I hated high school. I don't want to go back to that. So you need to, if you want to expand beyond that initial audience, you need to put some paid behind your content. Now, where it gets really cool is the targeting in in sponsored updates specifically is unprecedented, right? It's very specific. You can take a thought leadership play, a very unique angle from culture, from product, from industry, trends and topics, whatever you want to talk about, and you can pay to promote that article in the news in the feed on LinkedIn and target it. It's almost like a PR play, right? So native advertising as a PR play for thought leadership is really powerful. If you can't get the media to cover your story, why not target all the people who are influenced by the media? Why not get your article, publish it on LinkedIn, publish it on your blog, and then share the update through your company page. See how it does. If you get a little traction, then you put some paid behind it, sponsor it, and target it. It's your own PR play, man. I love that. I think it's the way forward, and I think there's some people who are doing a really nice job of this. Again, I think it's important to keep in mind here's obviously the mobile device versus the desktop, but again, getting in the feed with a thought leadership piece that's thought provoking, and then targeting the right people is incredibly powerful. LinkedIn groups, again, LinkedIn groups, you get out of LinkedIn groups what you put into it. Now, for thought leadership, it's like having your own little, closed or open community. You can choose which way you want to have it. But think about it like this. There's a couple of people that I know, like HubSpot has a really great group called Inbound Marketing, right? I was a part of this group for like a year before I even knew HubSpot was managing the group, because they did such a good job. They weren't selling their product. They were testing ideas, and they would ask very thought-provoking questions. But it's a really great thought leadership play, because they would share industry trends. They would take the comments and they'd pull them together, and they get these insights from them, and they create content based on that. While they're harnessing and controlling, and I wouldn't say controlling, while they're managing this conversation and nurturing these folks in this group, they're also becoming this authority. When I think of inbound marketing, I got a question about inbound marketing, I'm going to go to this group and look for answers. That's incredibly powerful to have that authority. Thought leadership just leads to authority. And I think moving forward, again, as I mentioned, if you don't have that authority in a space where it's very competitive, you're going to have some difficult challenges ahead. So, this is even cooler. So, publishing on LinkedIn, long-form content on LinkedIn, right? So, LinkedIn opened this up to members, and you can actually publish long-form content on LinkedIn. So, a lot of you folks might be familiar with the influencers program, right? With you can see here Richard Branson and Conan O'Brien and Barack Obama and Arianna Huffington, right? They're in there, but now it's open to all members. So if you have a thought leadership idea, or any ideas or thoughts around any of those three types of thought leadership we talked about, you can publish that directly into your network on LinkedIn now, right? Attach it to your profile. As I talked about, I talk about 2015 as the year of personal branding a lot, right? This is where, if you're a marketer and you don't know who you are, what you stand for, or what type of voice you have, I mean, I'm kind of veering off into individual thought leadership a little bit, but, it's super important to think about these things, to tie these back to your profile, right? The LinkedIn profile is a place where you can brag a little bit about yourself, but you can also start some very thought-provoking conversations and take some very interesting, unique approaches to ideas and trends and topics and products and all this stuff. And now you can do that and publish it directly on LinkedIn. Share it with your network, all these articles have the ability to go into Pulse. And Pulse is the news aggregator. It's where I get my news every morning, based on what's happening within my network and the companies I follow. It's a great play on thought leadership as well, because one of the key pillars of staying on top of things with thought leadership is being in the know, having your finger on the pulse, for lack of a better term. So, pulse is based on what's trending in your network based on who you're connected with, and hopefully you're connected with like-minded professionals, and then the companies you follow, and the influences you follow. It's almost like a real-time industry newspaper, newsfeed, delivered to you in real time. It's incredible. It's an incredible opportunity. And then, I talk about SlideShare for thought leadership a lot as well, because I think this is a terribly underutilized resource. Some folks think of SlideShare as excuse me, as a repository for their WebEx slides, which it's so much more than that. I think of it as more of as a visual content thought leadership platform, if you will. And there's just a few examples of folks. I mean, these are kind of the usual suspects here again, but these are folks who are really doing great work using SlideShare as a thought leadership vehicle, a visual content thought leadership vehicle. I love this. Marketo, again, does a great job, but Moz here with their, they take this content. I mean, think about this. You have this content, you have a white paper, and then you turn it into a nice self-guided visual journey on SlideShare. These SlideShare channels are free. It's free to set up an account. It's free to post there. And it's just another way for people to consume your thought leadership content. All three of these companies here, Marketo, Moz, and the Content Marketing Institute, all do a great job of this. But a quick little story from Marketo, my Marketo days. We had a white paper, a thought leadership white paper around inbound marketing, and I think it had about 17,000 views or whatnot. But we took that same piece of content, that same piece of thought leadership content, was not selling anything. We were just taking a play on inbound marketing and trying to make a dent in the space, right? Trying to disrupt a little bit. And we took that same piece of content and turned it into a SlideShare presentation, a self-guided visual journey through the same piece of content, and with that same piece of content on SlideShare, a little bit of promotion behind it, a little bit of native advertising. We got 500,000 views on it. That's a B2B white paper turned into a visual, self-guided content journey on SlideShare. Very powerful stuff, right? So again, look around and see what thought leadership content you have, or whenever you're creating thought leadership content, always keep in mind, how can I repurpose this for the other channels? And SlideShare, it should certainly be on your radar when you do that exercise. So, as Mr. Ronnie James Dio, you'll always see a little bit of heavy metal in my presentations. This one is a little bit more lighter than my Welcome to the Funnel presentation, or my face-melting content marketing and ROI presentation. But anyway, activating your employees. I think this is another thing that's overlooked a lot. Is just getting your employees to share content, and it doesn't have to be thought leadership content, but curating content based on your industry and trends, right? So we did a little experiment when I was at Marketo, where we challenged our employees to share content, right? And the important thing to their LinkedIn profiles, and optimize their content, optimize their LinkedIn profiles. What we found was really interesting, because think about it like this: when a sales rep calls you, or a sales development rep, or whomever, or a marketer, and you want to know more about those folks, what's the first thing you do? You probably go to LinkedIn. If you go to that LinkedIn profile and that person is not sharing content based on, not sharing industry content, not helping spread the word, or just curating some good content around that industry, so they know what they're talking about, so they establish themselves as an expert in the space, then you're simply going to miss opportunities, right? So I think it's incredibly important to put together some type of program to make sure that your employees are sharing your thought leadership that you create for the company, but not only that, sharing content from the thought leaders in the space, right? So my world of content and SEO, I share a tremendous amount of content from Moz and Ann Hanley and Michael Brenner, etc., because those are things that I find interesting, and I only share stuff that I find interesting, that I read, that I think is applicable to the space that I'm in. So again, look to your employees, because if they're not sharing content, if they're not sharing your own good content, then again, you're simply missing opportunities. So this is, again, and as I talked about curating content, it was tapping into multiple sources, right? So, groups, and this is LinkedIn specific, but I like to talk about this because this is the world that I live in, right? There's a tremendous amount of content coming in from the influencers, the influencers program, which is you can follow these folks, you can share their content, but you can get insights and curate this stuff and talk about it yourself. Like one blog post from Richard Branson, an idea out of there could spark something. You could take your own unique opinion. That's thought leadership in action, and share it and write about it yourself and link back to it. And it gives you a little credibility, but it also gives you ideas. There's a constant feed of ideas to fuel your thought leadership strategy from just articles from companies, from influencers, from groups, from folks in your network who are publishing. Take 10 to 15 minutes a day and click around in your LinkedIn feed, and I guarantee you'll get some very good ideas and some things that will make you think a little bit differently. And once you trigger that thought and you have an idea, write it down and publish it on LinkedIn, and then once it's going to start getting some traction for you, and I think it's going to pay dividends. And you know, I pulled this straight out of this. This is like LinkedIn Pulse is something as I mentioned I look at every single morning, right? I have this list of blogs I subscribe to. There's a blog post I wrote called I think it's 20 or so blogs that I read religiously. Well, I have them all synced into my Pulse app. But not only, so I have my own kind of custom marketing channel on stuff, people that I know are innovating and stuff that I know I want to share and consume and get ideas from for thought leadership content. But whenever I logged into LinkedIn this morning, and I thought this was great, and I took this screenshot this morning, and I wanted to share it with you guys. I logged in, this is the first thing that pops up, right? And your feed is going to be different from my feed because the feed on LinkedIn is based on the richness of your profile and the people you're connected to, et cetera. We all talked about that. But it's customized for me, right? And so these are the first 3 articles I see. And right off the bat, these are 3 articles that get me thinking, right? Ryan Holmes, the CEO of Hootsuite, a tremendous thought leader in the space. But not only is he a thought leader, Hootsuite is a thought leader as a company, is a thought leader in the social space, and I think they do a great job with all of that. But not the manager type, maybe you're a guru. That's a unique angle on people, you know, the buzzword guru. People hate the word guru. So I would click on that just to see what this thought leadership take is on the term guru. I think that's interesting. And then BlackBerry. So why is BlackBerry suddenly so hot again? I wasn't aware they were, but I'll tell you what, I will click on this because I'm interested in that, and because I like the keyboard on BlackBerry. I can't get past that. And then Robert Scoble, one of the most influential minds in the startup community, seen through futuristic, you know, I can't say that. I don't know what the restrictions are on cursing on a webinar. But again, I mean, this is the first thing I saw in the morning, and it pulled me right in. So it's that easy, man. The info is out there, the data is out there, the articles are out there, the people are out there. It's what you make of it and how you take the time to kind of pull together. So let's talk about why it's important to measure thought leadership. And again, 3 things here, right? I don't know why my revenue piece isn't showing up there, but let's just talk about this really briefly. So, you know, all marketers know they're expected to prove the value of what they're delivering, right? There's no doubt about that. But the same holds true when it comes to thought leadership. You need to, and as I mentioned before, you need to define your goals and then measure and then report on them, right? So to start, I would say outline what you expect from your thought leadership program. Now, there's a couple of different things here. There's 3 ways to measure this. So, number 1, reputation. Arguably, a key goal of establishing thought leadership is cultivating a reputation as a trusted authority, right? And again, don't confuse thought leader with thought leadership. I'm talking about thought leadership as a brand, as your company, right? Ideally, this reputation will prompt others to solicit your input and thoughts on strategic issues and take this into account as they form their opinions and make strategic decisions, right? Now, what's interesting here is thought leadership from a company angle can really expand upon you know, interview requests, like a request for expertise. It's very powerful. Your reputation based on speaking gigs, based on meetings, all this stuff is super powerful. So I would measure that reputation as one of the first and foremost things. So, and then relationships, of course. So thought leadership can be your inroads to developing important connections with other recognized authorities, industry leaders, and potential customers, partners, and more, etc. And then finally go on to measuring revenue. Ultimately, you'd like to see your thought leadership initiative help you generate more sales. And again, if you're tracking your content, if you have the right marketing technology in place, you can certainly track your content pieces all the way to pipeline, and then you can segment those content pieces out. Is this top of funnel, is it middle funnel, et cetera, but is it thought leadership? And you can get a thought leadership play on measuring there as well. So this is, I think this is equally important, right? So thought leadership throughout the funnel. And this is something we focused on a lot at Marquette, and I brought over here to LinkedIn as well. So just a couple of things when you're thinking of early, right? How can you measure thought leadership throughout the funnel? Early types, or top of funnel, I should say. Inbound inquiries, shortlisting of vendors based on their thought leadership play. And then mid, faster sales cycles, higher close rates, bigger deal sizes, right? And this is all based on thought leadership content, mapping it to your funnel, mapping it to your buyers' stages, mapping it to the problems the questions you're answering, the questions and pain points throughout the funnel, throughout the process here. And then how thought leadership can impact that is through increased customer loyalty and higher lifetime value, right? And then finally, the impact. How do you measure? This is interesting, and this is LinkedIn specific. How do you measure thought leadership through LinkedIn? And what my take on this is you will likely deliver your thought leadership via the same channels you deliver other company and marketing messages, right? So written content, speaking engagements, that means you can use the same measurements to determine the reach and impact of your efforts, such as content downloads and views, events, in-person and online registrants and attendees, comments on blog posts, mentions in respected and relevant publications, retweets from Twitter, new followers on social media channels from your company page, etc., and then top-level search results, like an SEO play there. But again, if you can distribute your content or your thought leadership through all these channels, you're going to have an impact on your bottom line. Again, very powerful stuff. Oh. And then just a quick note, really, one quick note on aligning your thought leadership with messaging strategy. Before you dive into any of this stuff, you really have to set your goals, right? And that starts with, again, there's a lot of parallels between what I'm talking about here and just basic content marketing 101, right? Understanding what your customers and what your prospects and customers believe, right? This isn't really so much of a content play of answering their questions, but it's more of aligning your thought leadership to what they believe, what these folks believe in, and how they go about choosing their vendors and consuming their content. And then number two, develop and articulate a well-informed point of view, right? Which angle are you going to take on this thought leadership journey? And what's interesting here is, if I want to learn about if something hits the news and it's some new startup gets acquired by a major corporation or something, right? If I want to read about that, I'll go to TechCrunch or I'll go to Mashable, right? Because they're going to give me the news about that. But if I want to read about a unique angle from somebody in the industry, then I'm looking for a thought leader. There's a thought leader gap there. If I go back to Kapost, Jesse Noyes over at Kapost, a really great example of that is when one of their competitors, a Kapost competitor, was bought by Oracle. And instead of Jesse, kind of trying to fight this, he embraced it, and he reached out to 10 different folks in the space, and he asked their opinion on this, and then he curated it into a blog post, and he put it out there and put some paid behind it, and he was part of that conversation. So I wouldn't call it newsjacking because I'm not a fan of newsjacking. I think newsjacking is chasing stories, and I would never want to chase a story. But if you can kind of glide behind a story, or just add your unique perspective to a story. That's what thought leadership's all about. So just a great example there from Jesse at Kapost. And then finally, frame a story in terms of the value delivered to help buyers see new possibilities. Again, unique angles on stories that are out there. This is easy stuff to do. Take a stance. Let people know where you stand on these topics and these stories and how your product can transform these. So I'm going to wrap this up here with Mr. Jimi Hendrix again, and again, it's a quote from Jimi, I think back in 71, 72. Sometimes you want to give up the guitar
you'll hate the guitar, but if you stick with it, you're going to be rewarded. And the same thing goes with content marketing. The same thing goes with thought leadership. If it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, right? So this isn't going to happen overnight. But the longer you wait, the longer it's going to take, right? You can start writing about thought leadership or take a thought leadership angle this morning and have an impact this afternoon. You can have a much bigger impact 6 months from now. So I just recommend that you get started right away, and I will leave you with this little handy-dandy checklist. Oop. And again, I'm not going to walk through this but line by line, but I think you get the idea here. Print this out, keep this nearby, define, secure, align, establish, develop, use content marketing concepts and best practices to disseminate your thought leadership, deliver thought leadership at every stage of the buying cycle. You guys will get a copy of these slides, and then finally define success criteria and measure and report on it. So with that being said, this is the guide that a lot of this is based off of. This is something we released just a couple of months ago. It's a Sophisticated Marketer's Guide to Thought Leadership. If you don't have it already, it is a free download. It is everything you'd ever want to know about thought leadership, written very strategically, not like an instruction manual. This is a very interesting piece that when I put this together and I wrote this thing, and we have lots of industry insiders and interviews, and I will be honest with you. I think the story of thought leadership has not been told as well as it could be. I think there's a lot of great articles out there, but they're scattered all over the place, right? If you want if you want a one definitive source for everything you need on thought leadership, I think this is the one. That was my goal in putting this together. So I hope you guys get this and get some value out of it. And one final thing, I just kind of threw this in there last minute. Thought leadership will save us from content shock. Why is that? Because we don't need more content, we need more relevant content. And as long as we can figure out branded content and add some thought leadership, I think this content shock thing will go away very quickly. And of course, this is my book, Welcome to the Funnel. If you don't have it, it's on Amazon, it's on Kindle, I think it's in a couple of different bookstores somewhere, maybe not, I don't know, but it's everything I know about content and social wrapped into one place, told with a little bit of rock and roll flair and some fun. So check that out, and if you have any questions, please let me know. But I will leave you with this, Mr. Paul Stanley, my favorite quote of all time: people want a thrill, people want a spectacle, and people love to be entertained. We are B2B marketers, we are content marketers, we are social demand gen, we are everything. But do not forget that there is another person on the end of every piece of content you put out there, from thought leadership to every type of industry piece of content. Keep it consistent, and don't be afraid to think something new and push the boundaries and makes people a little bit uncomfortable, right? It's all good. That's it for me. This is my final slide, I think. This is, as many of you know, we acquired Bizzo last year, and we have lots of cool things to come, so stay tuned for some really cool stuff coming from Bizzo and LinkedIn. And I believe that's all I have. Thank you so much. Everyone have a good afternoon. If you have any questions, please feel free to tweet me at JasonMillerCA or at LinkedIn Marketing, LNKD, or LinkedIn MKTG is our Twitter handle, and that's it. Oh, I think we have some questions. I'm the kind of guy who jumps in these questions without any type of Oh, here's a question. The 3 types of thought leadership your business should be creating. The question: what about consumers? That's a very good question. I never thought about that. The 3 types of thought leadership your business. I'm not sure I understand the question. What about consumers? I will get back to you on that question. I'm not sure I understand that question, because I would think that you could certainly do some cool things around thought leadership with consumers, but again, I'm in my B2B mindset right now, and that's kind of what I was focused on. Here's a question from Sally. Can you clarify the difference between showcase page and company pages? Yes, very quickly. A company page is, for example, the company page would be LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn's company page. Now, a showcase page would be LinkedIn Marketing Solutions, would be LinkedIn Sales Solutions, or LinkedIn Talent Solutions specifically. Another great example is Microsoft, right? So Microsoft has their Microsoft company page on LinkedIn. They want to talk about other things besides, they want to segment their audiences, and they have different, different audiences, right? So they have an audience for Office 360. They have an an audience for Xbox, right? And they don't want to mix that message because it gets irrelevant in the stream. So what they do, or in the feed, so what they do is they build out a showcase page very quickly, very simply. It has almost all the same functionality as a company page. It's just a different way to it's like a child of your page where you can build your own audience and share your content, et cetera, et cetera. So again, take a look at the LinkedIn Marketing Solutions page. It is a showcase page, and the mother page of that is LinkedIn proper. And again, Adobe has several showcase pages as well. They do a great job at that. Let's see if I can get one more in here. Where in the marketing organization do you see ownership of these sorts of initiatives, groups, SlideShare, failing social content? Where do I see it in the marketing? That's a really good question. I'm trying to see if I understand this from Leslie. Again, I think I don't know if they're failing as much as just maybe people don't give them don't stick with it long enough, right? So if you look at an example, there's a webinar I'm doing in a couple of weeks about how to about Big Rock content, which is a concept I talk about in the book a lot. But if you think about one big piece of content, one home run per quarter, and then you repurpose that into many different pieces, right? So groups, SlideShare, social channels, email, etc., are all fueled by content, right? So you need that one big piece of content. But if content marketing can be looked at with a bell curve, just like product adoption could. If you put out this big piece of content, this Big Rock piece of content, this substantial piece of content you worked very hard on, you're going to get the early adapters. The early adopters are going to probably jump on this. But what about the laggers? What about the people who aren't ready? Well, that's where you slice and dice this thing and use these different channels, groups, SlideShare, infographics, etc., to kind of ungated pieces of content to kind of as little tentacles off of your blog, promoted through LinkedIn or whatever, to bring them back to kind of put these pieces out there, and then when they're ready to pull the trigger for the bigger piece of content, they know where to find you, and you're always top of mind. So hopefully that answers that question. If not, just tweet at me. Will the presentation and audio be available email to the group? Yes, it will. And I think we are out of time. Oh, I got one more here. What is the right marketing technology to track and measure thought leadership? Man, well, again, this is what you need. This is from John. The right marketing technology is the one, I hate to sound cliche, but it's the one that works for you. But I'm going to tell you what, man, you're going to need two things. You're going to need marketing automation, and you're going to need some type of top-of-funnel tracking platform, maybe Google Analytics, etc. Bizzo is a great example of this, of course. But you need some way to track the conversation. You need to track the referral traffic, and you need to track these specific pieces of thought leadership content all the way back to pipeline. And how do you do that? You do that through tagging. You do that through through your marketing automation platform. But one piece of content tagged through all these different channels, you see what's working, you see where this is having an impact, and then you go and you scale it. That's what I say. But I'd say a combination of Google Analytics, marketing automation, and then some type of top of funnel tracking as well. So anyway, that's all we got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I will see you guys next time. Thanks so much.